Just chilling until we're back, but we are back. Right, thank you for being with us. Thank you for being patient. We're working our way through these gremlins, so we are back to the project. Now, where did I get to? I think I was just talking about getting the bandsaw blade into the middle of the wheel. Now, that's all important. So if we can hit up back to camera 3, please. There we go. Right, you see that. Now, what I've got is the blade kind of in the middle of the wheel there. And most modern bandsaws will be like that. These wheels are slightly crowned, a little domed on top, which helps the blade sit on the top of the wheel and kind of helps the blade itself in some ways. Really, really old machines, they've got kind of flat wheels, and you used to have to try and track them and run the teeth over the front of the blade, front of the wheel, which is a bit tough. All modern machines, well, I say modern for the last kind of 20 to 25 years. Yeah, I've been doing this a little while. They've all got these crowned wheels now, which is the best way to go. It really does help us out. So we are in the middle of the wheel, both top and bottom. If I can come back to camera 2, please. We're going to apply a bit of tension there. That wheel just goes up, lock-in lever. If you've not got that tension lever, then it's on this top knob. Just crank it up to take up a bit of the tension. Now, at this point, I'm just going to spin the wheels, just carefully. Remember, the machine's switched off. So I'm literally just spinning those wheels to make sure that that blade is in the right place and stay. At this point, I might need to adjust the tracking. So if we can come back to, please, camera 3, I'll just mess out with the tracking. Right, now your tracking knob on the back of the machine is such a subtle movement. It's tiny, less than, 1/8 of a turn, kind of 10 minutes at a time almost, you're turning. And you spin, run the machine, and let's see what we're doing. Right, you can see that tracking back now. Let's bring it forward. Try and bring it forward so much that it's almost the front. There we go. You can see that coming forward now. Let me stop that. There we go. See where it is now, to where it was. There we come forward again. Here we go. Don't want it coming off the front. There we go. Look at that. Right on the front. But I need to track it back now. So I'm going to rotate. Very subtle movements on my tracking knob. Push the bottom of the wheel back, pulling that blade back into the middle there. Stop and have a look. That's lovely. That's sat in the middle of the wheel now. There we go. We can see we're back into the middle of the wheel. Now I'll get to check my tension. And as I said, I like to check a tension in this area, just here. I don't like to check it where the guides are, because the guides are there to restrict blade movement, and it could get in, it could touch the blade and stop you getting a true reflection of how tight that blade is. Now, how tight is tight? It's a really difficult thing to put across on a video, I must say. But I like about no more than a centimetre, 10 mil, 3/8 of an inch of movement in that area. I find on a lot of machines, if you can probably touch the body of the machine with the blade, maybe it's just a little bit too slack. So you can hear that, hopefully. You can see that touching the body of the blade. So I'm going to re-tension now. I'm just going to put some tension on. So if we can go...
David just asked, can you twang the blade?
Can I?
Can you twang the blade so we can hear what it sounds like?
Oh, I can. It's not at tension right now. I'm not a musician, so I couldn't give a... Yes, that's a double E. No, double E. No. Right, so that's where we are. We're not quite tensioned. We're close, but not quite. So let me put some more tension on. So if we can get back to camera 2, my friends. Thank you very much. Right, so we're still rotating. I'm going to crank that knob. You've got a little bit more adjustment on this. And now come back over here. Now that is getting close now. Let me... Oh, no, we see we've got a tone change. I think it's still just a little bit loose. It's just touching. So let's give that a little bit more. I don't want to give it much more. There's no need. So that's it. Come back over here. Camera 3, please. There we go. That feels really good. I can't quite touch the body of the machine with light to moderate pressure. I know it's difficult to gauge and how hard are you pushing, Craig, but I'm not giving it much. And I've got that tension just there. I can't quite touch the body of the machine, and that feels just right. It can be a little bit trial and error for you guys with a new bandsaw, or maybe an old bandsaw that you're refurbing. I did a lot of that back in the day. bringing lovely old Wadkins and Dominions, Robinsons, Whiteheads back to life from the scrapyard. It was really quite fun. Right, so we've got our tension. So if we can come back to camera 2, right. So there we are. We are tracked, we are tension, we're new blade on. So this is ready now for me to pay attention to the all-important guide set. All right, so we'll get close on in. So, sorry, camera 3 now. Thank you very much. So let's get on down to those guides. There we go. All right. So let me move that top guide set out of the way a little bit. Now, what we want to do is move the side guides forward till the face of the bearing. I'm not sure whether you'll pick this up on camera. Let me get close on in. Here we go. Look at this. Getting technical now. If I do that the right way, we'll be all right. You might not see. I'll do that on the top one in a minute. So the face of the bearing is just behind the gullet line. Really, it's so at no point the bearings come in contact with the teeth. All right. I'll then bring in my rear thrust roller. Now the gap at the back here wants to be about 1 millimeter. All right. So when we put just a little bit of pressure on when we're cutting, it doesn't go too far back and could potentially come off the back of the wheels, I guess. All right. There we go. So we've brought the side guides forward, so they're just off the gullet line. Remember, the gullet's the low point on the tooth. And then I'll bring the side guides in. Now, I'll show you on the top ones. I know the bottom ones are pretty good. Yeah, that's good. So let's bring that top guide down a little bit. Hopefully you'll see that. There we go. And I'll bring the side guides in so they're just off the gullet line. Bring my rear thrust roller in so it's 1 millimeter off the back of the blade. All right. Now, what I'll do is the all-important positioning on your side guides. This one is nice, got a little lock. And then we can rotate these guides in and away from the blade. And they want to be just away from the blade. The rear thrust roller was 1 millimeter from the back of the blade. This particular side guide wants to be just off the blade, so not quite touching. If you've got these bearing guides, a nice little tip, this is what I do. All right, so rotate the wheel, rotate the guide till it just touches the blade and starts to turn. There you go, see that turning? And then back it off, well, it's still rotating the wheel, back it off till it stops. Then you know that you're just away from the blade. So let's go through that again. We're away, rotate the wheel so the blade's moving, bring it in till it just touches the blade. There you go, rotation, and then back it off till it just stops. That way you know that you're just away from the blade. And do the same thing to the other side. There we go. We'll lock it into position. And we'll do the same on the bottom. Don't forget that these bottom ones are set already. I know that they're good. So just to recap on the guide, the all-important guide set. Just ease that off a smidge. There we go. Rear thrust roller, 1 millimeter away from the back. 2 side guides, just away from the blade. Nice to roll them in and then just back them off till they stop moving. If you've got those old block guides, what you can do is set them up in exactly the same way. So they're just off the back of the blade. Just off the side of the blade, should I say. Right.
Craig, I know you've gone over it before, but just Keith is just asking the best way to clean resin off the bandsaw.
Yeah. I can show that again. There we go. Yeah. All right, let's try that one. So what I tend to use is just a little blunt old Stanley knife blade. And I'm working the rotation towards me, and I'm just going to put this little blade. I'll do it blade off normally. I wouldn't do it blade on, but I've got the blade on now. So, and then we just scrape that off like that. It says, I did this before. There wasn't a lot of muck on there, but what we can do now, here we go. You can just see that it's taking the muck off the wheels. We can do that top and bottom wheel. Every time I blade change, I do that. Even though I've got good extraction, clearing the waste well and all that, It's still important to keep the wheels as clean as you can. That's just a little scrape. Don't rotate the wheel, it digs in. Rotate this way. Okay, so that's it. Tension. Check over here. About 3/8 of an inch, 10 millimeters of movement. Tracked in the middle. Take your time to get that tracking right. Pay attention to your bottom and top guides. Easier when you can take the table off, agreed, because you can actually get to them and see them, and I can certainly show you guys a lot easier with the table off, but don't neglect them. Because if those bearings are everything off as well, Craig. If those bearings do come into contact with the teeth, instant blunt blade. So even if you've got a brand spanking new machine out of the box, don't think that the guides are going to be set correctly. You need to follow your instructions, look back on this video or previous setup videos that I've done, and just make sure that you get it right. It'll prolong the life of your blade, but less, a sharper blade puts less stress on the machine. Okay, so let's get this table back on and we can actually start some cutting. Right, so we're just there like that, just there like that. Right. There we go, and that drops in nice and easily. There we go. And the two knobs and the table insert. There we go.
And while you're doing that, I just the person that's asking about the impact voice, would you be able to email Woodworking Wisdom so we can answer you directly?
Yeah.
Would you be able to put that through your mic, Craig?
What, the Woodworking Wisdom?
Yeah, just ask there's a customer here just asking about an impact device. I'm not quite sure of the question, so could he email into Woodworking?
Yeah. An impact vice. Yeah, I'm not 100% what we're quite talking about there. So if you could drop that question and any images that you've got and you need to woodworkingwisdom@axminstertools.com, we will be more than happy to answer your questions. So your table insert goes back in. There we go. What I tend to do, I'd pop the table insert out. I always make sure I've cleaned around the area where the table insert sits. So just to make sure that table insert sits flat and is not sat above the table surface and going to get in the way. Right, and of course the table will always come down to that positive stop. Because from new, I took the time to set the stop bolt underneath. So it'll always come back square. So if you're one of these people that needs to cut square on their bandsaw, it's a relatively easy thing to do. Set the stop bolt, get a square in this area, or get a little level box. Where are we? These things are pretty cool. All right, so if we can pick up camera 3 for a second, Colin. There we go. All right, so we'll come in just a little bit closer. Right, so we got a level box. All right, so turn them on. There we go, and then we can zero off. All right, not sure if I'll put that back there. You might be able to see it. 0. There we go. So 0 off. Yeah. So 0. We've zeroed against this table. Now what we can do is then, because magnets, stick it to the side of the blade. Not sure whether you'll pick that up on screen. Let me tell you. Well, 89.9 degrees. Now, given that we're looking for a right angle here at 90 degrees, 89.9 is not bad. I'm pretty happy with that. So that just says setting that stop bolt underneath you, tilt the table or take it on and off, you can easily achieve getting back to square quite easily. Sticks on the side of the machine. Let's close the doors. If we can go back to camera 2, gentlemen. All right, we'll just double check one more time. There you go. Almost complete silence, and that's what you want when you've got your bandsaw blade on. If it's whirring and rubbing quite loudly, something isn't quite right somewhere. So there we go. So it's time to plug it in. Just make sure everything's running okay. Turn it on. So I'm going to drop these guides down, just like that. I'm going to get my safety specs, and I'm going to turn it on. Right, what camera are we on? Brilliant. So I'll get the microphone right close in. almost complete silence. Kind of a sign that you've got everything right. Nothing's catching and whirring and rubbing in the wrong place. Okay, so I'm happy with that. It is time to have a look at our project. So this is the project that we've got to do. As I said, we've got to cut this fish shape out of kind of 20 mil tulip. So a relatively simple thing to cut because it's a brand new blade and not too thick, but you know, we got some intricate shapes here to figure out, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to bob over to camera 3, put the extraction on, and we'll put the extraction on. We'll do the extraction man as well, Colin, I'm afraid. All right, so let's just change that angle very slightly. Whoops, zoom out so we can see what's happening. And there we go, look at that. That's a good view. So I'll drop this guide set down, I don't know, about 3/4 of an inch, 20 mil above the workpiece, just to give me some good support from the guides close to my material. And I'm just going to look to cut. Now, where am I going to cut first? All right. Now, some of these tight curves are going to be really tough to get into, and you're not going to manage it. We might just pick this one up. I'm going to come in here first. I'm going to do a cut there. I'm probably going to do this cut into there. And these little cuts and this sweep, they'll all be kind of separate cuts. I'm not going to be able to flow around the entire because we've got a real sharp curve there. We've literally got a corner there. So I'm going to come on in. Now, you've got to think about the size of your project. If I'm going to try and cut around this, am I going to come in here and try and swing around this way? It's going to hit the side of the machine and I'm not going to get there. So I'm going to do everything I can from the open side of the machine, if you like, because the throat